wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Page 5, we have already started chapter 1. It's socialization and the creation of the social identity. Today's topic is the importance of socialization in influencing human behavior, including the nurture versus nature debate. Socialization is a process that describes how we are taught the behavioral rules we need to become both a member of a particular society, culture, and an able social actor. Biology, rather than culture, may influence some of the ways people behave. Like all animal species, humans seems to be programmed by their genes to some extent. For example, there seems to be derives for procreation and for self-preservation. Genetics suggests that behavior may be guided by instinct based on biological instruction that can be seen as the part of human nature. Instincts are fixed human features. These are things we are born knowing, and our culture environment play little or no role in development of these instincts. For example, many females have a mothering instinct. A weaker expression of this idea is that people are born with certain capabilities. They are then put into practice through environmental experiences. Nature give us strong hints about behavioral roles, but people are free to ignore those hints. If women have greater child-caring capabilities than men, then it makes genetic sense for them to take on a caring role within the family. However, there is not something their genes force them to do. One way to test whether nature in the form of instinct or nurture in form of socialization is more important factor to take advantage of a naturally occurring form of experimentation, the study of unsocialized or feral children. So basically in this paragraph there are a couple of things we need to understand, and we need actually here to have a debate. Either it's nurture or nature. There are two different ideas about the upbringing of a child. First of all, we need to learn one thing. When we are born within any family, within any culture, within any society, so they, regardless of the environment, we need to understand there are certain things which are called instincts, are the genes, are the genetics. So a person, when a mother give birth to any child, so there must be instincts which are traveling. There are two things which are together. So first of all, instinct, one thing. Second thing is the other things which are related with the genes. I mean, for instance, one can say that when a mother gives birth to a girl or a boy, so there are certain things which are transformed, inherited. There are certain things which are transformed from mother to their children. One thing. Second thing is that being as a human, being as a species, we are certain things which have instincts in our personality. So one thing which we call the nurturing is basically all about the genetics. It's all about inheritance. It's all about the instincts. It's all about the nature. When we talk about the nurture is all about the behavior we learn through our environment, through our society, through our culture. So in this debate, there are two different ideologies. First of all, they simply support the most important thing which leads to the behavioral improvement is your instinct, your genetics, your inheritance. All these things are biological. One thing. Second, I mean, the option or the second, you can say that the sociologists, they keep on saying that no, yes, no doubt about that. There are certain things which are biological. There are certain things which transform from genes to genes are inherited, but environment plays a more important role. So one can say that if a person belongs to a specific family, they have specific culture, specific genes, inherited different specific thing. But this bonding is not that strong. The more strong thing is the ambience, the environment, which can shape up the character. So that is the reason it is possible to say that a person who is very, you can say, belong to a specific family, and the family has a specific kind of traits by birth. I mean, which can be transferred to a newborn kid. So this is one of the points. Second point is more powerful according to sociologists, because they simply said ambience play more important part, because the peer groups, your working place, the way you brought up makes the difference in shaping your personality. Next thing is it's a feral children. Feral children have missed out on primary socialization by humans. Example, attract a lot of media attention, but in most cases the evidence is very unclear. For example, it is usually uncertain how long the children was away from people, and some often noted cases have been proved fake. Feral children can be raised by animal or survive on their own. Evidence of human infant raised by animal is rare and not always reliable. One recent example is Saturday Mathian, who has discovered in 1987, aged 5, living with a pack of monkeys in South Africa, and who years later still behaved in ways associated with monkeys rather than humans. However, evidence of children raised with little or no human contact is more common. A well documented example is Jenny, a 13 years old Californian girl discovered in 1970s. Pine noted that Jenny had been isolated in a small room and had not been spoken to by her parents since infancy. She was malnourished, abused, unloved, bereft of any toys or companionship when Jenny was found. She could not stand erect. She was unable to speak. She could only whimper. So, feral children are sociological significant for two main reasons. First, when children are raised without human contact, they fail to show the social and physical development we would expect them are ordinary raised child. For example, walking upright, talking, using a knife or a fork. Children raised by animals behave as the animals do, suggesting that they learn by imitation. Second, if human behavior is instinctive, it is not clear why children such as Jenny should develop so differently from children raised with human contact. Further evidence for the significance of socialization is the fact that different cultures develop different ways of doing things. If a human behavior were governed by instinct, we would expect there to be few, if any, differences between societies. In fact, of courses, there are huge variation between cultures. Sometimes these cultural differences are relatively trivial. Bilikov discovered through his own experience that in Russia, when a man peels a banana for a lady, it means he has a romantic interest in her. At other times, culture differences are more fundamental. Watzak argues that in Victorian Britain, most women lived in a state little better than slavery. As she notes, women's sole purpose was to marry and reproduce. This is not a situation we would recognize in British society today. If human behavior was instinctive, it would be much the same in any place or the time. So, what is feral children? Feral children is a term which is used for those kids who missed the basic primary socialization. So, need to understand what is feral children. Feral children are those people who missed human contact, who missed primary socialization. So, I mean, there is a question mark when we talk about the feral children. So, before this, we were debating about how important the nurture or the nature is. So, those sociologists who can simply work for nature, they work for the biological, they simply try to convince biological inheritance genetic things are more important than nurturing. So according to them, there is a kind of failure when we talk about the feral children. So if one can say that if instinct is that much important, if instinct has more strong bond with the newborn baby, so it means environment ambience doesn't make a difference to any child wherever he wants, wherever he spent his childhood and in which society he belongs. So according to this feral children explanation, one can say that it's important to understand why nurturing has more part in shaping the character, in shaping or developing the behavior of a baby. So because we have a proof for that, one can say that if we talk about the feral children, there are dozens of examples we can simply quote. According to this article, we have cited a couple of examples like Jenny, the girl who was isolated. She wasn't able to stand properly, she wasn't able to talk properly, she wasn't able to behave properly. So, if, according to feral child, if biological instinct is more important, so feral child concept should not be discovered, should not be discussed even. This is what actually we need to understand. So, according to this debate, according to sociologists, one can say that more important thing is the where you spend your time, how you bring up by your parents. I mean, what is the influence of your environment? What is the influence of your culture, your ambience? This plays more important part than nature. So next article I have in my book is the I and the me concept. Basic human skills have to be taught and learned. The symbolic interactionist George Herbert Mead argued that the same was true of more advanced social skills. He claimed that the social context in which behavior occurs conditions how people behave, while self awareness, the ability to see ourselves as others see us and react accordingly, is often seen as an instinctive human skill. Mead argued that it is the fact learned. It involves developing a concept of self, and this is what sets humans apart from animals. For Mead, the self and awareness of who we are has two related aspects. First of all, as I aspect, based around our opinion of ourselves as a whole. We each respond to the behavior of other as an I. Mead call this is unsocialized self. And me aspect the concept of an awareness how other expect us to behave in a given situation. Mead call this social self. So basically, we are talking about two things: unsocialized self, like I, and socialized self, because it's about through socialization. We can illustrate these ideas in the following way. If you are accidentally put your hands in a fire, the I is expressed by how you react to the pain, and the me, however, specially conditions how we choose to express that pain. Your reaction will be conditioned by factors such as who you are, whether you are adult or child, male or female, and so on. Where you are, alone, at home, in a public place, who you are with, such as family, friends, or strangers. If you are a young child, for example, your reaction to being burnt may be to cry. If you're a young man, you may feel that crying is not a social acceptable reaction, so you may swear loudly instead. Swearing loudly may be acceptable if you're at home by yourself, but may not be acceptable if you are fixing a stranger's fire as a part of your job. Similarly, if you have been messing around with your friends when you burnt your hands, their reaction may be to laugh and make fun of your pain. So laughter would though not be an appropriate reaction if it was your child who had burned their hands. So basically, I mean, there are two things. One is I and me. So what is the difference between I and me? So the sociologists are the interactionists, George Herbert Mead, who played a part, who has a lot of studies about the difference between I and me. So what is I? Herbert simply called I unsocialized self. What unsocialized self is all about? It's how you behave. I mean, for instance, you have a free will to behave whatever you like to. So this is unsocialized. For instance, I'm sitting here. So one thing is that whatever I can do, I can do. If I can, I would like to laugh. I can abuse. I can smoke in front of the camera. So it's simply my choice, whatever I like to do. So this is unsocialized self because I don't bother what people think about me. So this what I'm thinking. So what I'm thinking, I'm simply presenting in front of the camera. This is I. When we talk about me is entirely different. Why isn't it entirely different? Because it is socialized self. Because in me, I need to take care of other people. What other people think about me while behaving. So being as a teacher, I have to be much conscious. I mean, what should I express? What should I say? I need to behave properly. The language I'm using, it must be appropriate because so many people are watching my videos. So basically, when we talk about me, it's all about what I consider myself in the eyes of other people. So this is me is socialized self. It's all about the critical evaluation of your personality, how you bring up, how you are experiencing while living in the society. So me is socialized. It's all about your experiences. It's all about how people think about you. This is what actually. So at the same time, when we talk about this I and me, there are certain things which are involved. So for instance, where you are sitting, I mean, if you are sitting with your family members, one thing, are you sitting with your friends? So this makes the hell of difference. For instance, if you're sitting, if you're, for instance, all alone, I can cry. Oh my goodness, means what happens to me. But if I am sitting with my friends and I simply burn my hand to some extent, so might be I try to control myself because I don't want to give my friends a chance to laugh so loudly. Secondly, for instance, if I whatever I'm doing, if I for instance I burn my hand and this is a part of my job. So obviously my reaction will be entirely different. So the things which I simply uh, try to convey to you all people, it's all about how you have socialized yourself. Your socialized self is all about caring about people, how you need to behave in the eyes of other people. So this is we have in I and me. It's all about socialized life, your socialized self or unsocialized self. The last thing for the today's lecture is the presentation of self. If the social context of an act change both its meaning and how people react, it follows that an awareness of self is constructed and developed socially. Goffman argues that who we believe ourselves to be, our sense of identity is also constructed socially through how we present ourselves to other. Goffman proposed a model of self and identity in which he describes social life as a series of dramatic episodes. People are actors. Sometimes they write and speak their own lines. This is their personal identity. Sometimes they follow lines that are written for them. The external influence that inform how people behave in particular situation. The idea of creating an impression is also significant in relation to how we present ourselves in different situations. Government suggests that when we adopt a particular identity, we perform to other in order to manage the impression they have of us. Identity performance, therefore, is about achieving a desired result. When you want to create a favorable impression on someone, you act in ways you believe that will like. For example, if you want to be seen as a good sociology student, you could carry around a textbook and a full folder of notes. 50 years before Goffman, Coley suggested that in the majority of the social encounters, other people are used as a looking glass self. They are like mirrors reflecting ourselves as others see us. And when we look into the mirror of how others behave towards us, we see reflected an image of the person they think we are. The presentation of self always involves the importance of interpretation. Identities are broad social categories whose meaning differ both historically and across different culture. The significance of negotiation. Identities are always open to discuss what is mean to be male, female, young, old, and so on is constantly changing as people push the negotiated boundaries of these. So, I mean, when we talk about, the presentation of self is really important. Uh, we need to understand how we shape ourselves. This is important. This is bit the extended version of I and me. So when we talk about the self, there are two things. Again, according to Goffman. So first, the things which I mentioned is it's all about Herbert Mead. Now it's Goffman. And according to Goffman, the presentation of self is important to understand. You know why? Because we have again two categories. First of all, for instance, see self. So what is self? It's all about my personality. So when we talk about my personalities, there are two things which are together. First of all, which character, which identity I am playing right now. See that uh, it's all about the socialization. It's all about the social construction. See, my name is Mortaza. Right now, I am presenting an identity, a teacher. So while working as an identity of a teacher, I need to behave in a specific condition. I have a different role. I need to present certain things as a teacher. What people think as a teacher, I need to present all the characteristics or the trait of a teacher in front of the people. This is one thing. So when I simply stop teaching, I play as an act as a father. So my role, my identity will be changed. When I act as a son to my parents, my identity will be changed. So the social construction or the presentation of the self is important to understand, because at one time I am presenting a different self, another time I'm presenting a different. So basically presenting of self is keep on changing the identity, keep on changing the roles. So while I'm interacting with the people, for instance, if it is an interaction of a teacher and a student, my identity will as a teacher will be entirely different. As while I'm interacting to my wife as a husband-wife relationship. So these are basically the things which are discussed in this article, the presentation of the self. So first of all, it's all about the identities. Secondly, it's all about the people in which I'm moving. Thirdly, the ambience I'm working with. So these three things we need to understand if we try to know what is the presenting of the self. And the last thing which is connected is the alternatives. Not all scientific disciplines place the same emphasis on socialization as sociology does when explaining how individuals become competent social actors. For example, biological ideas about evolution has sometimes been used to explain social development. These ideas range from relatively simple form of social Darwinism based on the idea that social life simply involves the survival of the fittest to the more sophisticated arguments of the social biology. In these biological principle of nature selection and evolution are applied to the human animal to produce what Wilson argued is a biological basis for all human behavior. He claimed that although human behavior is not genetically determined, it is strongly influenced by the biological program are biogrammars. Wilson believed that these biogrammars suggest that humans are likely to behave in a particular ways, most notably participant observation as an assistant in a mental situation published as Asylum, assess on the condition of the social situation of the mental patient and other inmates. His other best known books are the presentation of the self in everybody's life. So this is the kind of thing we need to understand. I mean, there are two things, as I mentioned earlier. Your identity, one thing. The conditions you are working with, secondly. The role you're assigned for a specific identity is the third thing. So when we talk about the alternatives, sometimes it does happen a person is not able to adjust. You know why? Because there are two things which are connected with the presentation. So first thing, it's all about the biological interpretation. And second thing, it's all about the sociological impact. So when we combine these two things, obviously we got something which is alternative. So first of all, it's all about the biological stuff. When we talk about the biological stuff, it means we are talking about nature. When we talk about the nurturing, when we talk about the sociology, we are working about the society. So it's all we have how we interact with different people. So this is what we have, just to try to understand how different sociologists mix things together to have alternatives as far as the presentation of an individual is concerned. No, the last thing I need to mention is, for example, he believed the person that men and women are biological programmed with different traits that leads them to perform different cultural roles. Women are passive, nurturing, and caring. Males' traits of aggression best suit them to providing a role that translate into paid work in a contemporary society. These arguments influence sociology in, for example, the work of functionalist sociologists such as Parsons. He argued that in most societies, family roles are organized to reflect the belief that women play an impressive role, that of caring of other. Men, however, play an instrumental role with a focus on providing for the family. Both of these roles are based in part on evolutionary biological principle. Evolutionary psychology explained contemporary psychological and social traits in terms of the general principle of nature selection. Those behavior that are evolutionarily successful are selected and reproduced. In this way, various forms of social behavior, such as family development and gender role, can be explained as evolutionary adaptation according over many centuries. Psychology is, however, a diverse field, and there are many different explanations for human development. These range from those focused on genetics, such as evolutionary psychology, through disciplines such as neuropsychology, to social psychological approaches broadly similar to the interactionist theory found in the work of Mead and Goffman. Social psychology places greater stress on how environmental factors such as the family and the working relationship affect the development of a genetic or psychological predisposition. Minds notice that although there exists a genetic instinct for babies to become attached to their primary caregivers, these can be affected by environmental factors. The most important of these is ability of the caregiver to recognize and understand the need of the child. So in this article, when we talk about the alternatives, there are three to four things we need to understand. First of all, there are different ideas which are connected to either with the genetic things or with the interaction within the society. So in alternative, you need to understand what is the psychological impact. You need to understand what is sociological impact. You need to understand what is genetics. So according to sociologists, there are certain things which is Listen, it is very important to understand your instinct is always there. So it happens in the last, when we talk about the feral child, according to feral child, we are on the same point. What is the point? That nurturing is more important, because if nature is important, then we are not able to understand what is feral child. One thing. Second thing is that according to Mead Kaufman, they simply accentuate on this idea that nurturing is more important, but genetically, I mean, for instance, a boy or a girl, a newborn boy or a girl, I mean, he has a very specific kind of attraction, affection with the one who give him the care in his primary socialization. So when we talk about the primary socialization and the interaction of a newborn baby with the child, with the primary socialization, so one can understand the genetic, uh, you can say the material is more in working order. So one can say that, I mean, still, I mean, there are scientists, still there are sociologists, we keep on saying that genetic is somewhere in your instinct, and sometimes it is possible that the environment, the ambience you are working in, can simply enhance your instinct. So this is actually what we have today. And before I can simply wrap up the whole article, I need to say that take great care of yourself, and hope to see you tomorrow on same time, same channel with same person. Till then, goodbye.